Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Museo Picasso Málaga and its staff for inviting us into the scientific committee, and Pepe Carmel in particular. In addition to thanking them, we would also like to express our gratitude to the Leonard A. Lauder Research Center for Modern Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York for allowing us to co-present here today on this aspect of our joint research. So without further ado, let's get right to it. On December 30th, 1921, Heinrich Tannhauser, the Munich-based art dealer, who had mounted Pablo Picasso's first retrospective in Germany 8 years earlier, sent a tardy reply to the artist. In what appears to have been their first epistolary exchange after World War I, Picasso had reached out to Tannhauser in the hope of acquiring a photographic reproduction of his 1905 painting, Family of Saltimbanque. Oh, so that was our initial first slide. It was supposed to have been deleted, but anyway, here we are, Family of Saltimbanque. Writing from Paris, probably in the spring, the artist was at work, assisting his new dealer in France, Paul Rosenberg, and the poet Pierre Reverdy, to prepare a monograph about himself. Picasso, ever cognizant of his self-image and legacy, recalled with ease that Tannhauser had purchased the painting for a record-breaking sum in March 1914. Writing from Munich to Picasso at year's end, Tannhauser, on the other hand, was preparing to mount a survey of the artist's work, the iteration of an exhibition staged at Rosenberg's Paris Gallery in May-June of 1921. This first comprehensive post-war showing of Picasso's oeuvre dating between 1906 and 1921 in Germany opened at Tannhauser's Moderne Gallery in May 1922. It would subsequently travel to Prague under the auspices of the Society of Fine Artists Mannes, where it opened in September 1922. Of these three Rosenberg-facilitated exhibitions, only the Paris survey has received thorough scholarly consideration. The Munich and Prague shows have been discussed in passing and without specificity, if at all. Relegated to the margins, they are presented as comparatively minor events. A common suggestion is that Rosenberg himself instigated the rapport with the German and Czech partners as part of his worldwide promotion of Picasso. However, surviving correspondence between Rosenberg, Picasso, and the German and Czech organizers, though fragmentary, points to a different scenario altogether. Close consideration of the exhibitions in Munich and Prague reveals that they occurred at the behest of the hosting entities rather than at Rosenberg's initiative, and as a response to these protagonists' internationalist ambitions. Departing from the established Francocentric or nationalist readings, this paper examines Picasso's presence in defeated Germany and the newly found state of Czechoslovakia through the context of unparalleled global integration that followed the collective crisis of World War I. It proposes that the drive for internationalism in the distinct post-war milieus of Munich and Prague found expression in the active seeking out of Picasso's art. To the local organizers, the exhibition signified a, quote, moral success, end of quote. Both 1922 exhibitions underscored a desire to bridge spatial and temporal divisions caused by the war. They represent instances of renewed efforts of a transnational dialogue sought by states, organizations, and individuals. Pursued since the second half of the 19th century, Internationalism came of age in the 1920s, in the era of post-war hope and optimism. Within the art world, those attitudes manifested themselves in such events as the Congress of International Progressive Artists in Düsseldorf in May 1922, which was accompanied by an exhibition that featured Picasso. For Tannhäuser and the Mannes Society, Picasso, a widely recognized art celebrity, embodied the internationalism of the art world. The Malaga-born, Paris-based Picasso, who had not served in the military during the war, yet was commonly identified as French, resonated in this region of Europe where one's nationality was not often equally malleable. Contrary to the preconceived notion that Central and Eastern Europe was preoccupied with Picasso specifically as a Cubist, Rosenberg's survey in Munich and Prague shows an enthusiastic embrace of Picasso in his totality, rather than any specific period or style. It was precisely the fluidity of Picasso's engagement with the past, present, and future, manifest in the diverse scope of his artistic pursuits up to 1921, that mattered. His unique pictorial pluralism aligned with the worldview articulated by the hosts of these two shows. The physical and spiritual rebuilding across devastated Europe was as much about reestablishing ties with the past as it was about building something new. Within the German and Czech cultural contexts, Picasso acted as a powerful linchpin between the post and the pre-war eras. In 1922, he presented a household name familiar to local audiences thanks to pre-war exhibitions, collections, lectures, and publications. Specifically, the Munich iteration of Rosenberg's 1921 Picasso survey seized upon the achievements of the artist's February 1913 solo exhibition at Tannhäuser's Moderne Gallery. German reviews of the 1922 retrospective remarked upon the experience of viewing Picasso nearly a decade earlier. Similar comments appeared in the Czech press, recalling exhibitions of Picasso's work in Prague before the war. Recognized in the region as the leading figure of the international Parisian avant-garde, as of 1922, Picasso's reputation had morphed into that of an established master artist. His recent alliance with Rosenberg underscored this fact.
In 1922, Tannhäuser pursued the opportunity to offer a Picasso survey heavy on his latest production. This seemed especially important given the consternation with which the news of the artist's newfound neoclassical style had been received a few years earlier. The Moderne Gallery's showcasing of the newest Picassos went hand in hand with Tannhäuser's international and educational ambitions. From its inception in November 1909, the gallery was far more than a commercial enterprise, serving as a pioneering cultural institution focused on fostering transnational exchange and support. Upon mounting the exhibition in Germany in May 1922, Tannhäuser wrote to Picasso, "We hope to succeed in turning the exhibition into a success, at least a moral one." And to Rosenberg, "Surely the moral success of your exhibition must fill you with great satisfaction." The moral success signified, on the one hand, a victory for transnational cultural exchange, and on the other, a victory for Picasso and his art, which had been depicted in German context by some as no longer innovative. Hosting an exhibition of a master artist such as Picasso signaled symbolic reconciliation following the devastation, destruction, and shame caused by the war on both sides. Indeed, the motive driving Tannhäuser in bringing the Picasso survey to Munich was one of revitalization and exposure. Set on jump-starting artistic rapport between Germany and France in the war aftermath, his efforts coincided with the moment during which normalization of Franco-German relations on the cultural level appeared within reach. As proceedings recorded in conjunction with the May 1922 Düsseldorf Congress attest, at least one French representative had agreed to show German art in France again. By the time the Congress met, Picasso's exhibition had been on view in Munich for more than 2 weeks. Committed to resuming normal international relations openly, Tannhäuser spared neither his reputation nor costs. The dealer hung Picasso's work in the most prestigious space in the gallery, the Skylight Room, and edited an illustrated catalog reproducing 13 works. Entitled Pablo Ruiz Picasso, as if to underscore Picasso's Spanish roots, and prefaced with a brief note from the gallery that emphasized Picasso's position as, quote, a leader within the international art scene, end of quote, the catalog also featured an introduction authored by Rosenberg. Deferring to Rosenberg's expertise on the latest Picasso, Tannhäuser boldly gave a platform to a French voice within the German context. Rosenberg's defense of Picasso's artistic plurality and mastery in the text was also reflected in the choice of accompanying reproductions. Paying tribute to all of Picasso's various pictorial idioms, the catalog foregrounded the evolution of Picasso's treatment of the human figure between 1906 and 1921. Altogether, the publication appeared as a carefully assembled reference book that expanded the identification of Picasso beyond Cubism. Comprising 45 paintings and works on paper, the Munich exhibition exceeded the selection shown in Paris and Prague. The checklist included the 1910 Cubist portrait of Wilhelm Uhde, a nod to the early support of the commitment to Picasso on the part of German collectors and dealers. Next were the Harlequin and Pierrot figures, as easily recognizable in French as in Italian and Spanish popular culture. Likewise, Picasso Neapolitan fisherwomen conjured Italian folk traditions, but also the artist's renewed interest in Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot. Last but not least, there were the 1921 large pastel portraits and female nudes that harken back simultaneously to ancient Greek sculpture, Renaissance painting, and the neoclassical tradition of Nicolas Poussin and Pierre Puvis de Chavannes. From September to October 1922, Rosenberg's Picassos appeared in Prague at the Hall of the Mannes Society, the leading association of local progressive artists, critics, and art historians dating back to 1887. While the Munich exhibition unfolded outside of an official national agenda, the Prague exhibition channeled such agenda. As in the case of Tannhäuser, the exhibition perpetuated the organizers' commitment to resuming pre-war national transnational artistic exchange. In post-war Prague, it was the Mannes Society that would spearhead this effort. The idea of extending the run of the exhibition by a Prague venue germinated during a conversation between Rosenberg and the bureau chief of the Czechoslovak press office, Hanuš Jelínek, in Paris around February 1922. Since 1918, the office held a prominent place in the dissemination of information about the country's affairs and assistance with international relations. Jelínek, by his own assessment, concentrated on the cultural side of these propaganda efforts. To carry out his diplomatic tasks, Jelínek relied on his pre-war connections to intertwine art worlds of Paris and Prague, where he acted as a poet, writer, and scholar of French literature. The primary subject and reason for Jelínek-Rosenberg meeting may have been a large-scale exhibition of 19th and 20th century French art, which Mannes Society began to plan under the patronage of the president of Czechoslovakia. placed in charge of the project Václav Nebeský, an art historian and the chief editor of the Society's magazine, Volné Směry, traveled to Paris in April 1921 to visit public collections and private dealers. Nebeský concentrated particularly on Picasso, who was also going to be featured in the exhibition. It is likely that Nebeský visited Rosenberg to discuss his inventory, and that his visit overlapped with Picasso's exhibition at the gallery. Nebeský would publish an article about the artist in Volné Směry in the summer of 1921. The images interspersed throughout this article echo the overall format of Rosenberg's representation. Examples of pre-war non-Cubist and Cubist works were paired with recent non-Cubist and Cubist counterparts from Rosenberg's inventory. Writing to Rosenberg on March 5, 1922, Nebeský, briefed by Jelinek on what had to be a positive reaction to the dealer, and made another case for Picasso's survey, emphasizing the effect it could have in Prague. I don't need to tell you how well Picasso is known in Prague. There's a private collection of first-rate Picassos, that of Vincent Kramaš, and how highly he is esteemed here, so that the exhibition in Prague would not only have a great moral impact, but could also have some no less valuable material success. For its exhibition catalog, the Mannes Society turned to Kramaš to write the preface. Deeply immersed in Cubism for having just completed a book on the subject, Kramaš's involvement may have been a welcome opportunity for the art historian to present his views on Picasso's entire career, the subject of which he had a thorough knowledge. He took a long view of Picasso's artistic eclecticism and wide range sources, acknowledging the past and current, quote, colorful variety, end of quote, of Picasso's practice. Kramaš, like Rosenberg's, emphasized continuity. When addressing the present duality of Picasso's work, Kramaš underlined the equal footing of his Cubist and non-Cubist art. Instead of illustrating the catalog as Tannhäuser's had done, save for Still Life with Brioche of 1909, which did not feature in the checklist, but which was familiar to local audiences through their prior publication, the Mannes Society opted to continue to circulate Picasso's recent imagery through Volné Směry, publishing several works from the show in an early 1923 issue, thereby allowing Picasso to enter into dialogue with artists across epochs and regions. It also published a photograph of the exhibition installed, the sole visual record known so far to document this instance of international rapport.
The 1922 Picasso exhibitions in Munich and Prague shine the light on the intellectual, cultural, and political preoccupations of its respective hosts and time. The installation of Rosenberg's Picasso survey in Munich, nearly a decade after the artist's work was last featured at the Moderne Gallery, gave Tannhäuser an opportunity to normalize relations with his French colleagues. The survey's appearance in Prague, where Picasso was equally well known before the war, also fulfilled Czechoslovakia's need, motivated by a nation-building objective, to cement ties with its closest political ally, France. In both cases, these regional efforts underscored a respective commitment to international exchange and cooperation. The surveys also meant to provide stimulus to local art communities suffering from post-war decline. Finally, the retrospective character of the surveys, with an emphasis on Picasso's latest work, reinstated Munich's and Prague's relevance within the contemporary art world, or the contemporary international art world. Indeed, the pursuit of Picasso's presence by both hosts was not an isolated event. Other protagonists based in the region also voiced their interest. There was the dealer and collector Alfred Flechtheim, who together with Gustav Kahnweiler, the dealer's brother and Flechtheim's business partner, appealed to Rosenberg to send the Picasso survey to Berlin. And Bela Lazar, the director of the Ernst Museum in Budapest, who with Tannhauser's help had tried to make a case for the exhibition to travel on to Hungary. Looking at it from this perspective, Tannhauser and the Mannes Society had succeeded in reviving transnational relations and communications just a few years after the war had ended, a fact that is also reflected in their continued collaboration with Rosenberg. Contained within their epistolary exchange in 1922, in conjunction with the Picasso surveys, was the pursuit of further joint business endeavors, as well as the successful opening of the large-scale exhibition of 19th to 20th century French art in Prague in May 1923. However, the measure of popular success or impact of Tannhauser's and the Mannes Society's efforts still needs to be fully explored. When writing to Rosenberg, both parties assured the French dealer that the surveys were met with enthusiasm. However, a note that appeared in a Prague newspaper 2 days after the opening of the exhibition there lamented an anemic initial public response. A stark contrast, according to the reporter, with, quote, the energy, richness, and exuberance of Picasso's imagery. Thank you.